Jungle Boy. You need to check out All Elite Podcast.
We are the Lucha Brothers, and you listen All Elite Podcast.
You know why?
Hey, this is Cole Cabana. Check out the All Elite Podcast. All Elite. Elite.
This is Sammy Guevara, the best ever. And you, yes, you, need to go check out All Elite Podcast.
Myself, the man with the huge effort arms, Brian Cage. You're watching the All Elite Podcast. Who better?
We are back, All Elite family, for another exciting edition of the All Elite Podcast. As always, I'm your host, All Elite Andy, joined by my guy, Big Match AJ. We're back fresh off another episode of Dynamite last night. Some crazy stuff going on in the world, pulling everybody's attention to the news, but still, we were tuned into Dynamite, and we're ready to talk about it. How you doing, though, AJ?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited to talk about Dynamite. I think that was my favorite Dynamite match last night. We'll get into it.
Oh, yeah, we have a lot to talk about with Dynamite. There was a lot of exciting moments, good matchups, and the close of the show was definitely a wild moment I think we've all been waiting for, but finally came to fruition, and like you said, we will get to all of that. I'm doing good, had a solid day, been doing a lot of work and stuff trying to get organized before I go back to my last semester of college next week. So yeah, I've been busy just organizing some things. Had a cool little interview earlier. Hopefully that pans out well for me. But yeah, not a whole lot of crazy stuff going on over here on this side. Just been chilling, enjoying Dynamite, enjoying AEW, the news that's come out and stuff like that. Let's go ahead and talk quickly about the ratings. I briefly referenced it in saying AEW pulled about 660,000 last night, down quite a bit from the previous week's Memorial show, obviously, for Brody Lee drawing in many fans. And this week, there's just something totally crazy going on in the world where people were likely tuned into the news channels. I haven't really taken a deep dive into the ratings report to see what was drawing everyone's attention last night, but I wouldn't be surprised if CNN and NBC and Fox dominated the news cycle last night. So
this might be, I'm not sure, so don't, I guess, like you said, I didn't dive into it, but this might be the lowest rating.
Yeah, it might be, and with everything going on, it's not surprising. We're obviously not a political podcast, so we're not going to jump into it. But yeah, there was so much going on. Yesterday was such a weird day that everyone's attention was sort of drawn on to that. But for us, AEW was, to me, like an outlet to not really worry about that. I totally understand people being worried about it, though, and tuning into the news. But yeah, AEW for me was a beautiful outlet last night, part of the 662,000 who tuned in, because it's just, for me, AEW is sort of that escape. Even when there is a lot of wild stuff going on, if there's some wrestling on, especially Dynamite, it can usually turn my situation upside down. And it definitely did here. It made my day a lot better tuning into a great episode of Dynamite. So yeah, solid week. And we still beat NXT, if that matters to anybody. Plenty of weeks we talk about how we don't really harp on that much, but hey, it's worth noting. Beat them by a solid 20K. Other news stemming from last night's Dynamite. Nick Jackson apparently might be injured. Something that's being reported after he didn't really participate much in the closing segment. No super kick from Nick Jackson got people talking a little bit, and apparently he might have been injured in his tag team match earlier on in the show. Did he look injured to you, AJ, throughout any of it?
No, that's just the story I heard, was that Nick Jackson was hurt in the match after Jack Evans came down on him really hard with the 630, and he got the like knees up, and he thought he broke his leg.
That would suck, especially on a move like that. It would almost start putting fear into people. We see that move all the time. I feel like at least the blocking of a flying maneuver. So if that ends up breaking his leg, that would really suck. Hopefully all is well for Nick. He seemed to be handling himself well, getting around, so hopefully it's nothing too crazy. That would be really unfortunate with the angle they're trying to run right now, especially. You don't want to see someone injured, especially Nick Jackson.
No way, yeah, not with everything going on right now.
Yeah, exactly. Last bit of news to talk about before we jump into Dynamite and talk about everything that happened on the show. Did you get a chance, AJ, to tune into the AEW video game show that they did after Dynamite last night?
Oh, I did actually, yeah. I forgot about that. It was cool. Did you see it?
Yeah, they did run down a couple of bits of information. No real timetables on at least the games I think people are most excited for, being the mobile general manager game and the console game. But
Oh,
they
actually,
did
I turned it off during the general manager part because I was like, "This is an EWR. I don't care."
right, and well, but those are the two games that people are looking forward to, and after that, I think is when they announced the Casino mobile game will be available in the next 60 days or less. I don't know how much I'm looking forward to that one. I'll have to wait and see what comes with it, and they'd have to do something cool with it to really get me interested in a casino game for AEW. You know?
Yeah, it seems like a weird idea.
Like I mean I get it if you especially if you can incorporate in any way like merchandise or something fans can actually get out of it outside of just another game to take away attention from an app store. I think it could be really cool. But we'd have to wait and see if there's any way to even incentivize like that. But I would love to see it. Still waiting on the announcement of a fantasy game, but overall I'm excited for the AEW game, especially just the way Kenny had hyped it up and stuff. What were your thoughts on that segment?
Um, I mean, it's cool, but also, I don't like No Mercy that much. I mean, I like it; it's fun, but like, I like the SVR games more. So I don't know. It'll be fun though. It'll be definitely way better than the WWE games, which is all I really want.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be an interesting thing to see how they deliver this concept because they're definitely not. They're kind of catering to a couple different audiences based on how I interpreted it. Like, they're not going for a strictly simulator type genre, obviously, and definitely not going strictly arcade either. Trying to incorporate elements of both, which could be great, could end up being really, really awesome. Also, could be really, really bad. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm definitely curious, especially with as involved Kenny Omega is with it. I see him really trying to make this into some type of competitive game that can be played in like a tournament fashion. Now, can they actually do that with a wrestling game? We'll have to see. But I see him definitely going in that direction where it's much more competitive. There's more thought into it. So. But yeah, that wraps up most of the news for AEW. Just some video game news, some rating news, and some hopefully not too serious injury news because it would be a shame to see Matt Jackson injured. So speaking of Matt Jackson, let's just jump right into Dynamite. They opened up the show with the Young Bucks and SCU teaming up to take on the Acclaimed in TH2. That's where the potential injury of Nick Jackson might have come. But the match itself was solid, decent little 8-man tag team match. Pretty much what you would expected, yeah?
Yeah. Everything was good. I think the Acclaimed looked good, which was important. And I was gonna say like at first, oh, the wrong team won, but then that wasn't really the case because what came after this match.
Yeah, exactly. I was right there with you in terms of like, man, we wanted the Acclaim to pick up a victory. It would have been solid for TH2 to sort of piggyback onto a win there. And so I was disappointed, but in the post-match, we have Kazarian explaining that if he and Daniels lose again as a tag team, that they will never team again ever. Also sort of pushing the idea of wanting to face the Young Bucks for the championships down the line because they are the best team, so if they win the belts, they want to beat the best team. Also an interesting dynamic to that story, so what comes at the end of the show adds another twist to all of that, but yeah, with Kaz and Daniels potentially splitting up, both of them a little bit older, but Daniels more so than Kaz especially. I haven't seen a lot of Daniels wrestling this year, since AEW really, you know, and I think that's intentional. I think he's sort of taking the same role as Dustin. We just don't expect it because for a lot longer we valued Daniels wrestling.
Yeah, well, I mean, and to that end, if Daniels wanted to start wrestling more, I wouldn't be upset about it because I love Christopher Daniels. But yeah, you're right. He has taken like a step back, which is fine. Or it might not even be the case. It might just be a matter of circumstance. But yeah, you're right. But also the whole angle, like you said, the thing at the end of the show, that definitely is going to make this different. I just hope it's not like, you know, like, I just hope it goes well because like I think we've seen this angle done before and it hasn't gone well. And so I'm interested, and I'm interested to see them as singles because that's the eventuality. But like up until that point, I want to see if they're gonna like win the championships, where they're gonna go with this, like how far they're gonna like what feud they're gonna enter into. Is it gonna be a feud with the Young Bucks? I'm really interested in this.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that it'll be very interesting to just see how it plays out. It's gonna be one that, given time, is going to get probably better because these are two really solid guys throughout the history that we've watched them in wrestling. So I think this is their chance to really get maybe even one last hurrah of a good, solid feud, especially together, because as a team, they've had good feuds in the past in Ring of Honor and stuff. Not so much in AEW, been very little, but as they get older, how many of those opportunities are going to come along, where as a tag team, you get special storylines. So this is probably the closing end of the storyline for SCU, like closing the chapter on that, which is very interesting to watch.
Yeah.
From there, commentary runs down what we have to look forward to on the show, and then we get Jon Moxley coming back, cutting a promo, letting people know that Kenny Omega certainly is not safe. He's going to get his revenge on Omega, so just a solid Moxley promo, continuing the situation with Omega, and obviously setting up the end of the show.
Yeah, and I guess we found out he was doing stuff at New Japan Strong for, I don't know if that was the reason that he wasn't at AEW, but he was doing something at New Japan Strong. Also, it was cool to see him back. It's cool to see that they're gonna go with this feud. I'm interested in seeing like where this is gonna go. Like if Jon Moxley, we'll get to it more, but like if Jon Moxley's gonna show up at Impact and beat him up, or like what's gonna happen. It's really cool. Jon Moxley's back. I'm happy.
Yeah, well, and you never know if with him being gone, maybe he was somewhere in a position where they could film. Because I know that Impact. Are they taping again, or have they gotten new taping in? Because that's where it would be difficult to shift Moxley into the picture there. But I am curious of when that will happen. So I think that them continuing the feud with Moxley is a great way to go about it. He's a great person to lead the charge for AEW, even though he is a bit of a lone wolf. But that we'll talk about it more as we get to the end of the show. But yeah, so far so good. From there we get Dasha backstage with Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. Chuck explaining that Trent's going to be out for 4 to 5 months, and Miro comes in saying that's such a long time and that's so unfortunate for Trent, or for Chuck, because he's going to be on the shelf for just as long because Trent carries the team. This was a solid little segment going back and forth to set up a matchup between Miro and Chuck. It was interesting for Chuck to just agree so simply to potentially being Miro's young boy, but it was a sweet setup until that point.
He was like totally sure he was gonna win, and it's like, didn't Trent lose to him? Like, aren't you like a little nervous about this? No, okay.
I'll take it too. I like Chuck Taylor, and it was a decent segment.
Will you like young boy Chuck Taylor though? Is the question, because that is what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, it is probably 90% going to happen, and that's going to be a whole interesting story in and of itself, truthfully, and. What they make of that could be interesting when Trent does come back. Maybe by that point, Chuck is all in on being with Kip and Miro, and Trent has to try and bring him back to their side or something. You never know. They could do something interesting with it. I don't anticipate it. Instead, he's just going to be bullied around, but that's going to be fun too. Mm-hmm. After that, we get another matchup with Wardlow taking on Jake Hager. We got a little bit of a promo from Wardlow as he was making his way to the ring, a little picture-in-picture promo. Could have timed that a little bit better because the match started as he was still finishing up the promo. But yeah, the match, what'd you think of it, AJ?
I was pleasantly surprised. I saw some people not digging this match, which is cool, whatever. But I was actually, I think because I had such low expectations of it, I was like, this is going to suck. And it didn't suck at all. It was perfectly fine. And both guys worked well together. It was a cool Haas fight. Then the post-match where they fist bump, I thought it was cool. The promo later, we'll talk about that. But I don't know, man. I like this.
Yeah, I did too. I think it was solid. I can understand people maybe wanting these two to maybe beat each other down even just a little more. I get the idea of a Haas fight. You want two guys to really beat the shit out of each other. But I think it was solid for what it was, and especially Wardlow being able to hit the F10 on Hager and make it look still pretty smooth, as big as he is a promising sign for Wardlow and that move. I think that's probably something I critiqued that move for early on. And outside of Hager, I don't know how much bigger you're going to get within AEW in terms of having to throw people around. So solid showing there. I think Wardlow looked fine. Wardlow is absolutely the right choice to win, and they're able to build off of that story. And even having them do a little fist bump, continuing those two as showing a little bit of respect there, that does a lot for Wardlow, I think, even just to not have been disrespected by Hager. Hager to, at that point, have been like, okay, you beat me. So I thought that was a good match. I think it's a good showing for Wardlow, and the more of those we get, the better, because I feel like we haven't just seen a lot of him overall. That's for the better. It's been in smart decision making and just featuring him in different ways, but still. From there, we get Private Party backstage. They're partying. Isaiah brought the gin, but Mark forgot the juice. Luckily, Snoop Dogg had the juice. They have Matt Hardy in the back. They sign a bit of a contract with Matt Hardy. This didn't do a whole lot for me, but I understand where they're going with it.
Yeah, they've been like doing the groundwork for this on BTE. So if you haven't been watching that, this might be like, what the fuck is Matt Hardy doing? But Matt Hardy is giving them a contract where he takes like 30% of their earnings each. And this is like a reference to old school things like Matt Hardy actually had to do to get booked places. They took a fee. And so it's a booking agent gimmick. And it didn't do a whole lot for me either.
Mm-hmm. Like, I get it, and I understand it, and in some senses, like, I see it as a correlation, yes, to old professional wrestling ways, but then also a correlation to, like, Private Party is very much more like them targeting a party hip-hop type scene, and that also happens within hip-hop, is just people getting screwed in contracts. So I see what they're presenting here in Private Party, getting screwed over by a contract. I get it, but it's just different. I'm going to have to wait and see how it plays out. Because I'm almost disappointed that Private Party just kind of looks silly here to me in terms of agreeing to it just because it's Matt Hardy.
They were like talking on BTE, like trying to get him to go to 15 or insert, but like if you haven't watched any of that, then it's like, this is weird.
Well, and it's definitely not their fault, but this week with that setup on BTE, it was very clunky because they had intended for it to air on last week's show after the Dynamite that had aired previously, and then obviously everything with Brody sort of threw stuff off, so they re-edited it on the fly this week, and it was very just weird. You could tell that they were trying to make something work, but it was very difficult to make work. So that's where I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt, though, and saying I'm going to give it a couple more weeks, see what happens here, but right now it's just strange.
Yeah.
A very promo-heavy show, this show, because we have Brian Cage and Team Taz come out next for a weigh-in with Darby Allin. Brian Cage weighs in at 272, Darby weighing in much lower. They have a bit of a back and forth before Sting finally comes out. Taz says he's sick of Sting, and next week they're going to crown a new TNT champion. You're not a fan of this, AJ?
Well, okay, number one, it's a fucking weigh-in with Darby Allin and Brian Cage with a match that has no weight limit. Number two, I'm tired of Sting coming out to save Darby or just hang out with Darby and do nothing, like say nothing about it. Just be like, oh, this is my son. And number three, I'm sick of Sting doing this like Taz is. But I don't know that got me excited for the match because I'm just like, if there's not a payoff to this in the title match, I'm going to be mad.
Yeah, it will be strange that, I mean, the most payoff we're probably going to get is Team Taz beating down Darby post-match and Sting finally bashing skulls in with the bat, which is, like, that's cool, but we could have literally done that months ago. It's a strange thing to build to, but again, a situation of wait and see. I don't love the weigh-in stuff, but I also don't hate it, because in this situation, I get it, like, you're showcasing the difference in weight between Darby and Cage. That's pretty cool. Like, I can understand, or in theory, it's cool. I can understand why you want to do it. But where it's weird is we don't do weigh-ins basically ever. It's just whenever it feels like something AEW wants to do. Previously, we did them at pay-per-views, but not everyone weighed in. So it's tough, man. If you're going to do the weigh-in gimmick, please just go all in it and have everyone weigh in prior to whatever big show. Like, don't do it every show. But if you want to do something like this with the press con, like, they should take stuff from UFC in terms of, like, press conferences and stuff like this. This isn't the thing they should really take from UFC, though. Weigh-ins don't work for professional wrestling. It makes for it's just a random segment, man. At the end of the day, it's essentially telling your fans, like, we're just trying to do something because there's no reason for these two to have to weigh in, you know? So
the only reason is, like, we don't want to see another contract signing, but this is not the answer.
And again, I don't want to be too negative on this one, because on this one, I can see a point in, like, oh, Cage weighs a whole 100 pounds more than him. This is a way to literally show that going into the next match, and they'll probably play into it in the next match with Cage just holding him down consistently, weighing him down, stuff like that. So in that sense, I get it, But the problem I have with it isn't even the action of doing it here. It's the lack of consistency across the board. That's where it tells me as a fan, hey, we're just doing this to do it. So yeah. Definitely don't want to sound too negative on it, though, because I don't mind the weigh-in stuff. I just need consistency. Something really short happened. You might have missed it if you weren't tuned into the show. MJF confronts Jake Hager. He's pissed off that he lost his match to Wardlow. But MJF calms him down relatively quickly, says some nice things about Hager, and Hager thanks him for checking in on him. So this was definitely not a big segment, but what I loved about it, one, was that MJF can motivate anyone to feel better about themselves after a loss. Like, I was like, you're so right. Why are you being so nice? You're never nice. But even more so, like, just building more to the storyline. The seeds are being planted continuously with MJF in the inner circle, and the more this plays out, it's going to be one of the better storylines of the year.
Yeah, this is probably, you're right. It's going to be headed for that direction, I think. I don't know where it's going, and I think that's why you're right, because I know things are happening, and I'm glad things are happening, but I don't know where they're leading to, and to speculate on that, I would just sound stupid, so I'm not going to.
That's what makes it, like, it's like a fun storyline you watch in a TV show, and that's literally what this is, but you almost never get that in professional wrestling, a fun, consistent, drawn-out storyline that is going to have a positive payoff. I've already seen MJF in one of those, so I know I can trust that this is going to go somewhere good and pay off relatively well, at least, so I'm not even worried about investing myself in this at this point. And it was a little strange at the beginning, took a little while, but that's because you had to make it make sense, and it didn't take long for it to make sense. So I thought that it was overall a really solid showing, and I think they did a good job.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, I don't know, good segment there. And that's what's so strange too about the segment, is it was so short. It was not a long, lengthy segment whatsoever.
Yeah, it was short and sweet and simple and made sense, and I like it.
Yep. So after that, we get a brief recap of what happened on Dark with -1 confronting Marco Stunt. That was fun. If you caught it on Dark, it was good. It's cool of them to highlight it here, and it obviously set up into something more because Marco is doing a bit of an interview. But before Marco can say too much about what the Jurassic Express is planning on doing, FTR come in and run him down. This was a good segment. I think that I'm not doing it any justice in terms of, and it was another short one, but good at building up what they're doing between FTR and Jurassic Express.
Yeah, like, just number one, that kid was brutal to Marco Stunt. My God, he's like, you're a loser if you're not with a bigger guy. It's like, you're a kid. and
You're a kid.
But Marco was like demoralized, and now he's like, I'm not a loser, and he was all like a pit bull. It's great. I love Marco. I love that Marco is going to be taking Luchasaurus' spot with Jungle Boy, and he's going to be kicking ass and beating FTR next week. It's going to be awesome. Hold me to it.
I'll hold you to it. I think that it was a good segment for Marco, even if he is just going to primarily be a mouthpiece for the Jurassic Express, which
he's
I think
gonna get the shit kicked out of him, by the way.
He should, and that's fun too. But I think like it might be better for him to just kind of primarily be a mouthpiece in AEW if he's going to be with this group. In this group, I think that as a talent on his own, or even in a tag team, he could be super exciting. But I see what they're trying to do with Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, and that also tells me that Marco's going to be either the guy who gets beat all the time, or he's going to be the mic guy. And if he could be the mic guy, that's great, because I think he cut a decent, short little promo in what he was saying here. I was able to take him a little bit serious in speaking for the team, saying that they were chasing the championships and stuff, and then FTR responding and stuff. So I love Marco, and I think he's great within that group, but he does have an interesting element to him. So if he can find himself on the mic and not have to work so much in the ring, it will be phenomenal for him. Similar to Rockstar Spud, if that makes sense to anybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm definitely excited for the match next week, though. We got Cody Rhodes picking up a win over Matt Sydal in about 10 minutes. Snoop Dogg came out as the guest coach, I guess, for Cody Rhodes.
Yeah. And
supporting
the
his
guest
guy.
theme song maker.
Yeah, so that was cool. The match itself was all right. Sydal, of course, coming out on the losing end, as I was pretty much expecting. We didn't get a whole lot of story from this afterwards like we had anticipated because of the build. Huh?
No. But The match was all right. The beginning was rough because that botch in the beginning was bad. It wasn't bad in the terms that they saved it, kind of, but like you could tell they were going for something entirely different. And I don't know. That's the only one that like it stuck out to me, but it stuck out to me so much that it kind of took me out of the match. But it was fine.
Yeah.
And the stuff after the match with Snoop was fun.
It was definitely fun and good for like social media stuff. That's where that type of thing is really going to kick off and get people in this age especially. It makes way more sense because you have social media and GIFs, and you can cross into different niche audiences who might not check out AEW generally, but now they see Snoop Dogg doing something crazy and they're like, oh, maybe I should check it out next week. Just stuff like that I think is smart. It was definitely funny watching him try and take a move off the top because he's someone that you could definitely see being like thinking a little bit different about wrestling until he's in that situation and has to jump off the top rope and is like, oh shit, this is actually way high. Like these dudes really jump from up here. And so his fall was goofy looking, but that made it almost better. So he's old too, man. Snoop Dogg's getting older, so he looked like he had a lot of fun. He's always having fun with wrestling stuff, and I think getting someone like Snoop Dogg involved and with his popular culture pull, it's a smart move. So, love me some Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, it was fun.
We had Hikaru Shida defend her title against Abaddon. Yeah, this wasn't as fun. I wish I could say
I'm totally ready to shit on this one. Nope, we're not even gonna be like, oh, we can't be negative. No, this sucked.
It was very goofy, especially they missed an opportunity. I feel like to really get Abaddon to an entertaining spot, and instead I felt almost as if this is how you would build to a cinematic match if you put a bunch of cinematic stupid shit before it, like them going under the ring for like 45 seconds. I'm like, what is this? This would only make sense if it was a cinematic match and we cut under the ring, and even then it would be dumb, but at least it would make sense.
If I was 11, I would not have been scared of this, and dumb shit in wrestling scared me, like the boogeyman. So I would have been like, that's fake blood. It looks stupid. By the end of the match, it was not on her anymore.
Yeah, it was tough, man. I get what they were trying to do something cool for Abaddon. It just didn't work for me. The biting thing especially, it doesn't work because it's like
he's a zombie.
Well, and it's like it's either fake or it's weird, you know? Those are the only two ways to look at it, because you know that someone's not really getting bitten, like chewing off big pieces of their arm and stuff, but at the same time, it's just like, geez, so.
Weird. It does not work, and this was not good for Abaddon. I'm all for scary, like, I'm gonna dress up scary and scream at you and like I'm a psychotic crazy person and I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. That's fine. But to be a zombie and drag people into the ring to bite their neck out of the referee's view is stupid, and this did not work. And thank God Hikaru didn't lose, because we were kind of worried about that, and I was worried about that until the end.
Until she won that, yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. Until she won, I wasn't sure how to feel about this match, because had she lost, I would have felt way different in terms of just frustration. I hope that they see that this just probably wasn't super well effective and not done well, and just don't do it again. I really hope that that's the thing, because they could try stuff all day long. They should try different stuff to see how it works. This was not it, though. So it was worth the shot. Abaddon should stay a part of the roster and stay a wrestling character, but like, you don't have to go that far into this demonic stuff, or even her actually biting. Like, she could just be crazy. I was buying into it with Jim Ross being like, yeah, we have people who show up and put their makeup on when they get here, but this girl wears it all day long. And so in my head, I'm like thinking, like, what if she actually does? Like, how psychotic does that seem at that point where she is walking around and stuff? Like, just that in and of itself is enough for me.
She can just be a crazy person, and that works perfectly fine.
She could even just be trying to bite people. She just doesn't have to be a zombie.
Yeah.
Like, it's good enough for me. But, yeah, I just don't have a lot of good to say about it. I'm glad that Hikaru won. I'm sorry if you guys loved it, and this is the old negative All Elite podcast, but we can't sugarcoat that one. No. They run down the card for next week's show. We will recap that on next week's Tuesday podcast, so tune in for that. But after that, we get Tay Conti explaining that she has a lot of respect for Serena Deeb, but she's
I
coming
was actually in
for
the middle of they announced the match with Serena Deeb and Tay Conti. Sorry.
Whatever, man. But it's an interesting match, I say, and with Tay Conti officially joining the Dark Order and being a part of that, like I'm curious. They have faith in her, is what I'm saying here. You could see it based upon them being willing to put her in a title match right now. She's not someone I'm super like. I haven't watched all of her matches, but what I've seen, especially prior to AEW, wasn't the best. So I'm surprised to see them giving her this much this soon. And this isn't even a lot. I'm not trying to act like they're pushing her to the moon, but it's just cool to see that she's getting a chance, and hopefully she can deliver on it.
I'm just happy there's another women's tag team because we only had one before, and it made it really awkward for that one tag team.
Yeah, and it didn't look like this one was going to last, did it? With how they were teasing her maybe not wanting to join the Dark Order.
Yeah, not initially.
At all. So, yeah, I agree. I'm glad that there's another women's team, and she's getting an opportunity to really showcase herself. And I like Tay Conti. I just haven't seen enough of her matches to say how much I like her. So.
Did you notice this was the only Dark Order segment, and there was no Hangman segment at all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And I kind of referenced that, I think, on our show on Tuesday when I said it would make sense for them to take a week and just let it sit and let everything kind of be as it is, and next week kind of get back to the storyline senses. And I had also said if they wanted to this week they could, but I think that this is the right way to do it. And I'm glad that they did it this way. And with as much as they packed into this show, it might have even been forgotten about a little bit. And dude, how cool is it going to be if it's the Dark Order that comes out and addresses what we talk about in the next segment? Like, so that's almost a better reason why they weren't there. So. I said
that way early on too. I said the Dark Order would be the guys.
You did. Before we get to that though, the Death Triangle was in the back. Pac tells Rey Fenix that he's an assassin and the next AEW World Champion. Talks about how tonight Kenny's collection is done. But of course, if you tuned into the match, you knew that Kenny wasn't going to lose. They had a hell of a match though. AJ, you referenced it at the beginning of the show. This is probably your favorite Dynamite match ever, right?
This was fucking fantastic. It's this or Pac versus Omega. I don't know. I have to go back and watch that one. But as far right now, yeah, this is my favorite because I asked on Twitter and I got one reply just being like, that was crazy. But like, I wanted a response. Like, is there a better match than what just happened? Because I don't think there is on Dynamite, not the whole of AEW. But I don't know. Anyways, we're back to like Kenny Omega is absolutely the cleaner. He's the collector, whatever you want to call him. He's fucking in his A game. This is amazing. This was like, I showed my cousin after the match had happened because I was like, you missed a fucking awesome match. And I showed him like 2 gifs and I was like, there was like 8 of these kinds of shit going on with Rey Fenix tonight. Rey Fenix had no fuck. I was mad. I was upset at how stupid fucking good Rey Fenix is because I was like, that shouldn't be possible, and he's gonna die.
I agree, dude. It was such a great showing from these two, and it's cool to see Kenny in this way because he's not really a different character than he was when he was doing the cleaner in Japan, where he was like still being kind of a douchebag bad guy, but because we're like foreigners watching him in New Japan, we still loved him. So now it's weird watching him in AEW and him be the bad guy, and we're supposed to boo him, but he's still doing all the stuff that we loved when he did over there. He's just doing it to other people that we're more familiar with now.
Sweet. Whoop, whoop.
It was.
I don't have a voice anymore. Cigarettes killed me.
It was so much fun to have seen that happen, though. The post match was great. The match itself, though, with Kenny killing it with Phoenix, I think that they did a phenomenal job. Like you said, one of the best matches in probably all of AEW, but easily one of the top 2 in Dynamite's history. So I'm glad we're getting that Kenny, that he's not the typical heel of like, all right, I'm the bad guy, let me do less, let me work like a bad guy. No, he's still doing his cool ass moves. He's just the fucking best at it now and is winning every time because he does it. I'll credit Phoenix too, making himself look pretty decent coming out of all of this because
decent.
Well, no, you're right. He looks like $1 million
Holy
bucks.
Shit.
But in the finish is what I'm talking about. Like he kicks out of the knee. And then the V trigger, and then he goes up for the one-winged angel, comes down and has enough energy at least to put his arm up. You know what I mean? So and it's like Even just that, I was like, you dickhead. Like, you couldn't just get beat. You had to show that you're still alive, like you're still fighting. And it's like going into the kick out he just had, where he didn't kick out, he just rolled his shoulder off the mat, like JR had said. I was like, that's such a cool build of that story of just losing while still looking like you were alive a little bit. Maybe not have won, but looked like he was alive. So I love Phoenix.
I want to say something, but I'm worried it's irrelevant.
Go ahead. I love irrelevancy.
Okay. You know why this is never, ever gonna fucking, like, I was thinking about it real hard. I was like, Rey Fenix is so fucking good, and if I was like 11 watching wrestling again, he would be my favorite fucking wrestler. Just like Rey Mysterio was my favorite fucking wrestler when I saw him in WWE, and I was like, this guy's fucking crazy. And that's never gonna happen in WWE again, I don't think, because like they don't, like, you can watch 205 live and watch crazy shit, but like that's the fucking end of it. Like, and you're not gonna see crazy shit like they let people do on AEW. Like, you're not gonna watch somebody do a crazy ass German suplex like that and drop somebody on their fucking head. You're not gonna see these spiked Frankensteiners, like all this crazy shit that they're doing. You're not gonna see anything to that extent. Like, they will push themselves to their limit of like what they can possibly do in a wrestling ring, and Kenny Omega will not back down from that. He'll go toe to toe with anybody, including Rey Fenix, who can do some of the craziest shit. And like, you can't see that in WWE anymore, and it really fucking bothers me that like you're limited on what you can do. And like, I get like why, because you're working a lot in WWE and there's risk of like injury, and they want to play safe with a product that's like a worldwide thing. But like, wrestling, I don't know, it's dangerous, and like sometimes you gotta do crazy shit, and I don't know, it's just like you don't get to see crazy shit like that.
No, I agree, and I think
it's like kid gloves.
I think at the very least it would be nice to get 1 or 2 a year. You know, that would be enough even for that company. But with AEW, you get them enough. And it's not every week. That's what we learned very quickly within AEW was we kind of thought maybe going into it we would get that every single week, and it wouldn't have been smart to do it that way. No. But we do get it enough that it's phenomenal, and you're right, it's a super relevant point, because with AEW giving wrestlers that opportunity, because it's not that the talent in WWE can't do this stuff. They can. Exactly. There's many talent who can do a lot of stuff similar or different, but cool, just as cool. They just don't get the opportunity to in that company. So yeah, I think that's a great point, especially with a matchup like this. Like, we got to see something on national television you cannot see anywhere else, because either like Impact and places like that doesn't have the attention and doesn't have the talent of this caliber, and WWE just doesn't provide this type of matchup. So I agree with you.
Like, even New Japan saves that shit for big shows.
100%. Well,
so you're not going to see it on TV. You're going to see it on pay-per-view at most.
Yeah, 100%. So I agree with you. And shout out to Kenny and Phoenix for tearing down the house. As they closed out the show, we saw, what was it? Don Callis is talking about how Kenny's going to finish beating up Phoenix, but before they can get to that, they have to go to the back. Eddie Kingston and the Butcher and the Blade are destroying Pac and Penta. So just explaining why they're not able to make the save.
I felt really bad for Phoenix, man.
Yeah, because he just gets destroyed through this matchup and then gets beat up some more. But we have Moxley come out to try and make the save with the barbed wire bat. He manages to lay one good one into Kenny Omega before we get the Good Brothers from Impact. Speaking of Impact, we get the Good Brothers making their AEW debut, destroying Moxley for a solid minute or so before some of the talent outside of the ring, including the Varsity Blondes, try to get involved, which I loved that part, that it was Pillman and Garrison, and that they might be the two that'll be right there with Mox, because they're the first two to jump in, so I imagine they'll be his guys that are right there. So I thought it was perfect for them. The whole segment was awesome. Crazy. It closes out, obviously, with the Young Bucks coming out to...
But everybody eventually jumped in, and they all got fucking laid out. This was crazy.
This
was an awesome match with a fucking crazy, mind-blowing angle stacked
that's
on
why.
top.
That's why
I was not high on this Dynamite until the last 30 minutes, where I was like, this is one of the best fucking Dynamite.
I agree, and that's why I'm bummed that that everything was going crazy in the world, that people weren't tuned in. But I get it with the news, but everybody missed out on, one, a crazy match, and even two, probably the biggest storyline angle we've all been waiting for basically forever, finally coming back and being told in the American wrestling audience's eyes. So Very cool. Obviously, as I was getting to, the Young Bucks are able to come out. They're trying to reason with Kenny. The Varsity Blondes grab Kenny, have him wrapped up in the ropes. You think that the Young Bucks might attack Kenny before Matt Jackson and Doc Gallows hit each member of the Varsity Blondes, dropping them off Kenny. And they too sweet to close out the show. The Young Bucks were a little reluctant to do so, but a lot happened, as you could see. It was a little tough to run through it all. If you didn't see it, you got to go back and watch this segment.
Watch it.
Because
it's on YouTube.
It's probably going to be one of the better segments of the year as we get to tell this story, and man, it's a lot of fun.
It's so good, and like the Young Bucks going with Kenny is like, oh fuck yeah, we're getting Motor City Machine Guns versus the Young Bucks. That's all I care about.
That's true. I didn't even take that into consideration, and yeah, there's going to be a lot of hopefully
like
some
Guns,
continued crossover.
If you don't know, the Machine Guns are already involved with a match with Kenny on Impact. It's going to be not you, I mean the people watching. Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers versus the Motor City Machine Guns with Rich Swann.
Yeah, so it essentially aligns the stars perfectly to get some Young Bucks involvement with them guys. I think that the more crossover stuff, the better for both companies in all reality. Like, AEW will likely be the company that comes out on top in a majority of the segments, but that doesn't really hurt Impact, who is just gaining more attention from this than they've had in a long time, so...
I don't even think it's gonna be like, oh, we're beating the Impact guys. I feel like they're gonna have that match or something, and then Jon Moxley's gonna show up and beat the shit out of Kenny.
Yeah, and yeah, that's probably true too. And that's
so
where
it's more like just it's an angle across two promotions. Like there's no war. It's just happening.
And that's what's going to make it more interesting, because you're right. It's definitely not a company versus company war, at least yet. It's very much a Bullet Club against everybody, which is going to make it more interesting than if it was one company versus one company, because it gives you the opportunity to beat everybody, because it's not about companies. It's about... and that's where it gets tough to beat people in these types of situations, especially modern day wrestling. Like if you did AEW versus WWE, who's going to lose? That's where the question comes down to. But if it's Bullet Club versus Impact and Bullet Club versus AEW, boom. And it's obviously not even going to be called Bullet Club because they can't. But who knows? Maybe they'll get some New Japan crossover. It would be so
smart if they were like, yeah, we'll let Jon Moxley work New Japan Strong. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be. And there were some... at least probably not hints to that, but Bullet Club guys over in New Japan, Tama Tonga Loa, and
I felt so bad for Tama.
They were messing around with them, but I can imagine being those guys like, oh damn, we're over here with this Bullet Club, but we really want to do that Bullet Club, yeah. So, yeah, I think overall it was a great Dynamite. What a segment to close out with. Finally getting some Bullet Club involvement, and I can't understate the fact that I'm excited to see Pillman Jr. really doing something exciting, especially with a guy like Griff Garrison. As a team, I think they can provide something interesting that I really haven't seen in wrestling in a while in a group like the Varsity Blondes. So it's funny because for a long time, the long blonde-haired wrestling tag team was kind of not unique. It was we've seen it enough, but now that Edge and Christian have been gone and the Young Bucks and everything else, like the long-haired tag team is going to feel different again. So I'm excited about the Varsity Blondes, and they got a different look. They're wearing like the old school varsity jackets and stuff. Like, it's fun. I think that it's cool to just get different stuff, and them with Mox, I think, could be the perfect introduction for them as entertaining characters, not just wrestlers. So.
And it's not WWE, so they won't do something stupid. Be like, it's the Moxley Boys or some dumb shit. Like, it's just gonna be like his boys backing him up. The Varsity Blondes being like a cool ass tag team. I love the Varsity Blondes. I liked them right away, but I didn't want to jump on the bandwagon because I was like, they might be bad. I don't know. I remember some shitty Brian Pillman Jr. matches. But he's gotten a lot better.
Well, and that was early on. You know, we've been literally following him for since year one at least, and that's what's cool to see him in this position. And that's what I liked them being the first two to jump the fence, and they did it a couple minutes before, a couple seconds before anybody else did. They jumped in, tried to make the save. Obviously, weren't successful, but you could tell that of everyone who got involved, these two have a purpose in getting involved. I think so. Yeah, I think it was a great show. Some stuff not necessarily the best throughout, but with the close that they had, and honestly a solid opening match, and all the matches themselves, well, most of the matches themselves were pretty good. 1 not so much, but yeah,
Yeah.
a good show, another good Dynamite, getting back into the swing of things, of the storyline stuff as we should, and it was good. It was a good show. So, especially with everything going on in the world, it was nice to
I
get the
fucking
relief.
forgot about that
Mhm.
during the Kenny Omega and Phoenix match. I was like, what? Fucking what? I don't even
Yeah,
care.
what's going on at the Capitol? Exactly. That's kind of how I was feeling at that point. It was nice to have forgotten about it for a while. So, yeah, it was a good show. That covers everything, though. That covers Dynamite.
Yeah, man.
That covers the news, covers the video game update, covers all that good stuff. AJ and I will be back on Tuesday to talk about Dynamite, AEW, as expected. Any news that we get, probably give our thoughts on matches on Dark we think you guys should tune into. Otherwise, wraps everything up. AJ, let them know where they can find you before we get out of here.
You can follow me on Twitter at Big Match AJ and on Instagram at AJ the Fitzy.
And you can find me on Twitter at Upstate Andrew. I'm on Instagram at Andrew Kazir. You can find the podcast on Facebook at facebook.com/AllElitePod or on YouTube at youtube.com/AllElitePodcast. If you're watching us there, make sure you smash that subscribe button, brother. And you can find us on Twitter at All Elite Podcast. Until next week, thank you guys for tuning in.